Hey guys, quick video on setting up Propresenter playlist with the appropriate cues for Sunday morning. So I want to go over this really quick. First thing up is the countdown video, and sometimes it's easy to drag the video in on its own. If I unlink this, you can see it there, and there's an open slot. But instead of just dragging it in, it's super important to use a slide. We've created this intro slide, named it intro slide countdown call to worship. That way you can search and hopefully find with whatever you're searching with. But if we drag that in, the reason is it allows us to have cues, and the important cues for this slide, and they are very important, is the multi-screen, to make sure that it's set right when you do it, and that's set to worship. It's the stage display is very important, because when I come out, it's hard to know what's going on, where we are in the countdown video, without being able to see that stage display set to clone. And so that helps me know where we are when we're about to start worship. And then, of course, clearing props on there, just in case there's something else that we need to clear off that is up there. And so always use the slide and make sure that those cues, which those cues are set each time if you use that same slide, but if you make a new one, then you can add them to it. Just make sure that you're not just dragging the video in. Next up is worship, and we always want to make sure on the first song, no matter what, that we add the right cues to the first song. Sometimes we switch it up. Usually the fast songs will have those cues on it because we've done them in the past. But if we do, say, a slow song that week to open up, and that's not what we normally do, or it's a new song, just make sure you always check the cues on that first song. The important cues there are the stage display, or the prop to start with, that says Pastor Andy, worship pastor, etc. That one's so important. No, I'm just kidding. But stage display set to default. I believe that's still the setting, but and you know how to add cues over that cue palette, or you can go up to the top and go to the cue palette from there, or add cues, but you can add them all in here. And so adding the default stage display so that we can see what's on there, it's super helpful. If you go up here and you scroll over this image and you click on that, you can actually see what's on there. It might be a good idea to just occasionally go over and see what we're seeing, because you can't see the screen from where you're sitting. And so because it's sometimes something messes up and the stage display is not set right during the service, and we can't really say anything from the stage when we're in the middle of a worship set. And so if you're checking that occasionally, or just checking it in the beginning of worship to make sure it switches to where it's supposed to be, that helps us out a lot. And then the multi-screen and a timer. I love having the elapsed time going. And so if I come over here and I set the timer cue to elapsed time, and I click this, then on the screen I can see, and as you can see there, it's set to the wrong stage display as well. So we're going to set that to default. Click that again. There we are. Now we can see our upcoming lyrics and our current slide lyrics. And then we have an elapsed time. And so what that does is that tells me, as we go through the set, if we're 15 minutes in or 20 minutes in, and I'm on song 2, I need to rush. Or if we've gotten through it pretty quick and I have room to open up, then I can do that as well. But it helps me out a lot just to see the elapsed time going there. And so another important thing is, if we do a fast song at the end of the set this particular week, then you want to make sure that you remove that elapsed time cue, because it's going to reset it if you set it up properly. So when you do that, if I edit my elapsed time cue, it needs to be reset and start timer. That way, when we reset it during rehearsal and it starts counting, and then we come back to the service an hour and a half later, it's not at an hour and a half, it's reset. When you click the slide, it resets it each time. And that is good to go. Other songs, I would set the first slide of every song to the multi-screen cue, just to make sure that it's there, just in case. Also, it's not on this list, but I would put the stage display on each song as well, just to be safe, in case something we switch around or something changes. And that way it's always resetting that, and we know that every song is going to be set up properly. And then the sermon cues, the order of the cues matters. And so you got your stage display and your props and your timer. And again, on the timer for the sermon, let's get down here real quick. So this has a multi-screen and a prop on it, but you also want to do stage display and timer, and those are going to be set to add a cue, stage display, timer. Sermon 35 is going to do a 35-minute countdown, and so we'll add that, and then we'll also add a stage display, which is going to be set to Sermon 35 as well. It needs to match, and there we go. That's going to do a 35-minute countdown, and as you can see when we toggle this, you can see what's seen up there. And if I hit that again, it didn't change it because it's not set to reset. And so what we want to do is edit that cue, stage display timer actually, and hit reset and start timer. And these are all small details, but they're really important because if you miss out on one of them, it could really mess up. If Pastor Jason's relying on the timer and we forget to hit reset and start, then when we get up there, it's going to be 0, and you're not going to realize it, especially if you haven't checked the stage display. And then if his rhythm is to look at the timer, then he'll be looking at the clock, and that's fine. But it means he's using more of his brain power to create a new system of finding out what time it is and how much time he has left versus using what he's used to. And so it's just important to keep these things consistent week to week. And then finally, we have close song, and that is this very last slide here. It's called close song. We add that in, and it has a multi-screen already set up in it that is set to worship, as well as a music cue. If you click on the audio over here, and we have some songs over here, a close songs list, and I update this. We add that to that as a cue. All you do is drag and drop it, or you can add the cue over here through Add Cue Palette, and that triggers that song to play from the Mac. So that's all. If you have any questions, text or let me know.